All right, so today we are going to deep dive into this whole Sandler Selling Method.
Okay.
You sent over this article called Sandler Selling Method, a step-by-step guide to boost your sales process. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I was really struck by that 88% statistic.
Oh, yeah.
That many sales reps say that their strategy actually improved
Right.
after Sandler training. I mean, there has to be something
Yeah,
really special going on here.
for sure.
It seems like this method really kind of flips the script on traditional sales,
Mm-hmm.
by really focusing on understanding a client's pain points
Yeah.
before you even mention your product.
It really is kind of a refreshing approach.
Yeah.
In a world that prioritizes the hard sell so much,
Right.
the Sandler method is really all about
Yeah.
building those genuine relationships and those long-term partnerships.
That makes a lot of sense, but how do they actually do that?
Well,
The article mentions this Sandler pain funnel,
right.
and honestly, it sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
What's the idea behind that?
Yeah, so it's not about inflicting pain or anything like that.
Okay.
It's really just a structured way to ask some targeted questions to uncover
Okay.
what your prospect is struggling with.
Right.
The goal is to go deeper than just those surface level needs
Okay.
and really understand their real challenges,
I see.
the things that they may not even realize are holding them back.
So, but isn't that a little risky?
Well,
Spending all this time digging into problems,
yeah.
what if it just scares prospects away?
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the brilliance of this method.
Okay.
By understanding the prospect's pain so deeply,
Uh-huh.
you're not just selling them a product.
Right.
You're really offering them a solution that's tailored to their needs.
Yeah.
And that builds trust, and it leads to a more mutually beneficial outcome.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So how does this actually play out in a sales conversation?
Sure.
The article breaks down the Sandler Selling Method into 7 steps. Let's start with the first one, bonding and rapport.
Right.
I'm guessing this is more than just like casual chit-chat.
Yeah, definitely. While building rapport is important in any sales approach,
Right.
the Sandler method really emphasizes genuine connection, finding common ground, using the prospect's name, speaking their language,
Right.
even using humor to kind of create that comfortable atmosphere
Yeah.
where real conversations can happen.
So it's about making the prospect feel heard
Yes.
and understood right from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
What about step 2, setting clear expectations?
Okay.
That sounds a bit formal. We're talking contracts here?
Not in the legal sense.
Okay.
This step is about establishing what Sandler calls upfront contracts.
Okay.
It's less about legalities and more about transparency and clear communication.
So what kind of things would you outline in these contracts?
Think of it as setting the ground rules for the interaction.
Okay.
You might discuss the objectives of the meeting,
Right.
the desired outcomes, even potential limitations.
Okay.
It ensures that both parties are on the same page
I see.
and can kind of avoid surprises or misunderstandings.
Yeah. That sounds like a great way to build trust and
Yeah.
set a solid foundation
For
for
sure.
the rest of the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, on to step 3. Identifying the prospect's pain.
Okay.
I'm guessing this is where that pain funnel really comes into play.
Exactly. This is where you start asking those probing questions to uncover
Uh-huh.
the prospect's underlying issues. Remember, the goal is to guide them
Okay.
towards articulating their pain clearly,
Okay.
not to make them feel uncomfortable.
So it's like you're helping them discover the problem
Yeah.
they might not even realize they have.
Exactly.
That's such a shift from traditional sales approaches where
Yeah.
you're always trying to convince them
Right.
that they have a problem that needs to be solved.
Precisely. With the Sandler method, you're acting more like a consultant,
I see.
helping them diagnose their challenges so you can offer the most
Sure.
relevant solution. That makes sense.
The article provides a lot of helpful example questions.
Yeah.
But the key is to really listen and understand
Right.
that root cause of their pain.
Okay, step 4, finding the prospect's budget. Right. Now, this is where I could see things getting a little awkward.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bit presumptuous to talk about money so early on?
You might think so, but think about it this way.
Okay.
If you spend all this time nurturing a lead only to find out they can't afford your product,
Yeah,
it's a waste of everyone's time and resources.
that's true.
The article points out that a good 50% of prospects
Right.
might not even be a good fit based on budget alone.
Wow, 50%.
Yeah,
I never thought about it that way.
it's a big number.
So addressing budget early on is a way to
Okay.
qualify leads and ensure you're focusing on those with a genuine potential
Yes.
to become clients.
It's the idea.
I'm already seeing how this encourages a more honest
Yeah.
and upfront approach to sales, which I really like.
Oh.
Okay, let's move on to step 5. Identifying the decision-making process.
Okay.
Now, I'm assuming this is about more than just
Yeah.
figuring out who signs the checks.
It is more nuanced than that.
Okay.
This step is about understanding the prospect's organizational structure
Okay.
and identifying the key players who are involved in making decisions.
Right.
Who are the influencers? Who has veto power?
Yeah.
What are the internal approval procedures?
So it sounds like it's about making sure you're targeting your efforts toward the right people.
Exactly.
Can you imagine spending weeks crafting the perfect presentation?
Oh, yeah.
Only to discover you've been talking to someone who can't actually make the decision.
That would be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
By mapping out that decision-making process early on,
Right.
you can avoid wasted effort and ensure you're connecting
Okay.
with the right people.
All right. We're on to step 6, moving into the fulfillment phase.
Okay.
So after all that groundwork, this is where you finally get to talk about your product right.
Not so fast.
Okay.
Remember, the Sandler Method is all about building that strong foundation for a lasting relationship.
Right.
The fulfillment phase isn't just about presenting your product.
Right.
It's about demonstrating how it specifically addresses
Okay.
the pain points that you uncovered in those previous steps.
So it's about connecting the dots,
Exactly.
showing how your product is the answer
Yes.
to the questions they've been asking themselves.
That's a great way to put it.
I like how this approach emphasizes the consultative approach.
Yeah.
You know, guiding the prospect toward the solution
Yeah.
rather than pushing it on them.
Right.
Okay, finally, step 7, confirming the post-sale process.
Okay.
I have to admit, I usually think of the sale as the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
What happens after that often feels like an afterthought.
And that's where so many companies miss the opportunity
Yeah.
to build those lasting customer relationships.
Okay.
This final step in the Sandler Method is all about ensuring customer satisfaction and setting the stage for that long-term partnership.
So it's about making sure that the client feels supported and valued
Yes.
even after they've signed on the dotted line.
Exactly.
It's about going beyond that initial transaction
Yeah.
and building something more substantial.
Absolutely.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to sales.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's so refreshing to see a method that prioritizes genuine relationships
Yeah.
and long-term value over short-term gains.
It's a different way of thinking about things.
Okay, so we've covered the 7 steps of the Sandler Selling Method,
We have.
but the article also delves into some specific
Right.
pain funnel sales techniques.
Okay.
I'd love to hear more about those.
Sounds good.
Let's dig into those next.
Okay. Welcome back.
Okay, so before we jump into all those
Yeah.
pain funnel techniques,
Right.
I wanted to touch on something we mentioned earlier,
Okay.
Meet Record.
Uh-huh.
The article talks about this software that can analyze your sales calls
Yeah.
and give you feedback on how well you're applying the method.
It is a cool tool.
Yeah, it sounds really neat.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, do you really need fancy software
That's a great point.
to benefit from this approach?
You don't. While technology can be helpful,
Okay.
the real power of the Sandler Method, I think,
Mhm.
is its emphasis on self-reflection.
So whether you're using software or
Yeah.
just taking notes after each call,
Exactly.
that process of analyzing
Yeah.
is essential for growth.
Absolutely.
So it's about becoming more mindful
Right.
of how you're engaging with prospects.
Yeah, regardless of whether you have a
Right.
computer program analyzing it.
All right, let's dive into those
Right.
pain funnel sales techniques.
Let's do it.
The first one listed is reversing.
Okay.
Honestly, it sounds a bit like a Jedi mind trick.
Okay.
What is the strategy there?
It's less about manipulation
Ah.
and more about just deepening the conversation. Reversing is simply the art of responding
Okay.
to a question with another question.
Okay.
Instead of giving a quick yes or no answer,
I see.
you're using the opportunity to gather more information.
So instead of shutting down the conversation,
Right.
you're keeping it open
Exactly.
and encouraging them to elaborate.
That's the idea.
Okay.
So, for example, if a prospect asks,
Okay.
can your software integrate with our existing CRM?
Right.
You might respond with, that's a great question. Can you tell me a little bit more about the specific CRM you're using
Right.
and what key features you rely on?
By asking for more details, you're not only
Right.
demonstrating that you're listening,
Uh-huh.
but you're also gathering information
Exactly.
that can help you tailor your solution.
It's the goal.
Okay. On to the next technique,
Okay.
Negative reverse selling.
All right.
This one really threw me for a loop.
Okay.
It seems counterintuitive to point out why your product might not be the best fit. Isn't that like shooting yourself in the foot?
It might seem that way,
Yeah.
but that's why it can be so effective.
Okay.
By acknowledging potential limitations,
Yeah.
you're building trust
Right.
and positioning yourself as an honest advisor.
So it's like you're saying,
Right.
hey, I'm not here to sell you something you don't need.
Yeah, I want to make sure this is the right solution for you,
Right.
even if it means losing the sale.
But how do you do that
Right.
without scaring them away?
You have to frame it carefully.
Okay.
You could say, for example,
Okay.
our software is really designed for businesses with a certain level of complexity.
Oh.
If your operations are pretty straightforward,
Right.
this might be more than you need at this stage.
Okay, so by being transparent about
Yeah.
potential drawbacks,
Right.
you're actually demonstrating confidence and
Yes.
showing you're more interested
Yeah,
in finding the right fit.
exactly.
What about the next technique? Posturing.
Okay.
Does it have to do with power poses?
Not quite.
Okay.
Although confidence is important.
Right.
Posturing in the Sandler method
Right.
is about positioning yourself as an equal partner
Uh-huh.
in the conversation,
Okay.
not a subordinate vendor desperate to please.
So it's about shifting the power dynamic a little bit.
Exactly. It's about asking challenging questions,
Okay.
pushing back on assumptions,
Right.
demonstrating that you're not just there to take orders,
I see.
but to engage in a meaningful dialogue.
I like that. It's about having the confidence to be
Um,
a thought partner,
Yeah,
not just a yes person.
absolutely.
Okay, what about the last technique?
The last one is less of a technique and more of a concept.
Okay.
It's called understanding the dummy curve.
Okay, now that sounds a little harsh.
Yeah.
Is this about categorizing prospects?
Not at all.
No.
It's about understanding the emotional journey that a prospect goes through
Excellent.
during the sales process.
I see.
The dummy curve is a visual representation of how their emotions might fluctuate. Okay, from initial skepticism to interest to maybe even resistance. So it's like having a roadmap, right, of their emotional state. Yeah, you can kind of anticipate.
So you can adjust your approach accordingly.
Exactly. It's like emotional intelligence applied to sales.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you sense resistance
Right.
during the budget conversation,
Uh-huh.
you can acknowledge their concerns
Yes.
and offer alternative solutions.
That's a great strategy.
This is all so insightful. I'm starting to see how these techniques,
Yeah.
when used with those 7 steps,
Right.
can really create a powerful sales approach.
It's a powerful combination.
The article includes an example call transcript
Okay.
that shows the pain funnel in action.
Right.
I'd love to take a closer look at that
Let's do it.
and see how it plays out in a real-world scenario.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this transcript is from a call
Okay.
between a SaaS sales rep
Right.
and a prospect who's struggling
Uh-huh.
to manage their sales operations.
Okay.
The rep starts by asking some open-ended questions
Uh-huh.
about their current process,
Right.
which seems to be like a mix of CRM
Uh-huh.
and spreadsheets.
I see.
What's interesting is the rep doesn't jump in
Right.
with a product pitch right away.
That's right.
Instead, they ask these probing questions.
Yeah.
Like, how long have you been dealing with this?
Uh-huh.
And how has this impacted your team's performance?
Notice how those questions are designed
Yeah.
to guide the prospect
Well-
toward understanding their pain points.
So it's not about telling them what their problems are.
Exactly.
It's about helping them articulate
It is.
those challenges themselves.
That's the idea.
It's like they're guiding the prospect
Yes.
on a journey of self-discovery,
That's a great way to put it.
helping them to grasp the problem
Yeah.
and its impact
Right.
and the consequences of not addressing it.
Exactly. And as the conversation continues, the rep keeps uncovering those deeper layers of pain by asking about the impact on revenue target, the challenges of scaling the business,
Okay.
and the reasons why they haven't fixed the problem sooner.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion
That's right.
to get to the core of the issue.
Exactly. And by the end of the conversation,
Yeah.
the prospect is actively seeking a solution.
So the sale almost happens organically
It does.
because the groundwork has been laid.
That's the beauty of it.
This transcript is such a great example of how this method can transform a sales call from a pushy pitch to a problem-solving session.
It's really a testament to the power of listening and empathy and a genuine desire to help.
This has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm already thinking about how I can incorporate these techniques.
I hope you do.
But before I go off and start practicing my reversing skills,
Right.
I'd love to hear your overall thoughts.
Sure.
What are the key takeaways?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that the Sandler method is more than just a set of techniques.
Well,
it's a philosophy
okay.
that emphasizes building genuine relationships,
Right.
understanding your prospects' needs,
Right.
and creating solutions that deliver lasting value.
So it's not about memorizing a script
It's not
or
all
following a rigid formula.
right. It's
Yeah.
about adopting the right mindset.
Cool.
If you can do that, the techniques will come naturally.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the final part
Okay.
of our deep dive on the Sandler Selling Method.
It's been fun.
I'm feeling a real shift
Okay.
in how I think about sales now.
It's not about tricks or pressure.
Exactly. The Sandler Method is all about
Right.
building those genuine relationships
Or sure.
and solving problems for your clients.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how to actually implement it all.
Well, it takes time to internalize these principles
Okay.
and adapt them to your own style.
So it's less about following a script
Yeah.
and more about understanding the philosophy behind it.
Precisely. Think of those 7 steps
Okay.
as a framework, not a rigid checklist.
Right.
You'll still need to use your judgment and intuition to navigate each stage.
All right, let's break it down then.
Okay.
Say I'm in that bonding and rapport stage.
Yeah.
What are some tangible things I can do
Okay.
beyond just, being polite?
Well, the article highlighted some simple strategies, like
Yeah.
using the prospect's name correctly,
Right.
actively listening to their responses,
Okay.
and finding common ground.
So showing that you see them
Exactly.
as a person, not just a sale.
For sure.
A little humor can help too.
A well-placed touch of humor can go a long way.
Okay, rapport is built.
Right.
We're moving into
Okay.
setting clear expectations.
Right.
How do I bring up those upfront contracts
Okay.
without sounding like a lawyer?
Focus on collaboration,
Okay.
I say, to make sure we're on the same page. Could we just outline what we hope to accomplish here?
Much less intimidating.
Right.
Now, identifying the prospect's pain.
Okay.
This is where I could see myself tripping up.
Well,
How do I ask those probing questions?
you have to approach it with curiosity
Okay.
and a genuine desire to help.
So not interrogating, but guiding.
Exactly.
Okay.
Remember, those questions should be asked conversationally
Right.
with empathy.
Okay, let's jump to the fulfillment phase.
All right.
This is where I'd usually do my product pitch,
Uh-huh.
but the Sandler method seems different.
It's less about selling
Okay.
and more about connecting the dots.
Okay.
You've built rapport, set expectations,
Uh-huh.
uncovered the pain points.
Right.
Now you just show how your solution addresses their needs.
It's a consultative conversation,
That's a great way to put it.
showing how your product solves their problems.
The Sandler method is all about guiding them
Right.
toward that solution.
This is all making sense now.
I'm glad to hear that.
Before we wrap up, what's the biggest pitfall
Right.
you see people falling into?
I think the most common mistake is
Yeah.
getting so caught up in the techniques that they forget the principles.
So it's not just about the script.
Right. It's about embodying that mindset
Okay.
of partnership and problem solving.
The techniques are tools,
Yeah,
but they have to be used authentically.
exactly.
Well, it seems like we've reached the end of our
We have.
deep dive on the Sandler Selling Method.
It's been a good one.
This has been really insightful.
I'm glad you found it valuable.
Yeah, this is just the beginning.
It is. There's always more to learn
Right.
as you adapt these principles to your own style.
You're right. I'm walking away with a whole new perspective.
That's great to hear.
To our listeners, if you're intrigued,
Yeah,
I encourage you to dig deeper.
I agree.
You might find that it transforms
Uh-huh.
how you approach not just sales,
Right.
but all your interactions.
It's about building meaningful connections.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive,
Sounds good.
ready to explore a whole new topic.
I'm looking forward to it.